In June of 2022, in celebration of my niece and nephew's 21st birthdays, we headed out west on an almost month-long road trip to see some of the iconic places in the West. Join us as we drive the American West. With the car already packed for the journey, we left a rainy Bulverde, Texas at 7 a.m. on the first Saturday morning of June. In May the month before, my niece Haley and nephew Christopher turned 21 years old. Yes, that does make them twins. But about 5 years prior to that, planning for this trip began as a promise to take them on a 21-day road trip out west for their 21st birthdays. We began to refer to this as 21 for 21, and the name stuck, even though in the planning for the actual trip, it ended up being extended to 24 nights just to squeeze it all in. So with all the planning complete, Haley, Christopher, and I headed off on this adventure to explore the American Southwest. This part of the plan was simple: to travel as many miles as possible on the first day and get out west as quickly as possible. At the same time, we wanted to find somewhere interesting to stop for the night and came upon Silver City, New Mexico as that place after some research and watching YouTube videos. The plan was to stop only for lunch and gas in order to cover the 700-plus mile trip in one day. Although a long trip, this is made far easier due to the sparse traffic and high speed limits of hundreds of miles of Interstate 10 in West Texas, and a change in time zones. According to plan, we stopped about 5 hours into the trip for lunch at Bush's Chicken in Fort Stockton, Texas, and some fuel for the car before heading west toward El Paso. We were in El Paso near the Texas-Mexico border by the middle of the afternoon and soon into New Mexico. We made another quick fuel stop before the final drive to Silver City. We arrived in Silver City and were checked into our hotel by 6 p.m. in what was now Mountain Daylight Time. We were all hungry and headed down into town to find some dinner. We chose Jalisco Cafe, one of the restaurants we had read about in our research, specializing in southwestern Mexican cuisine. Although there was a wait, it proved to be a good choice. We were hungry and failed to get pictures of most of the meal, but did manage to capture the giant sopapillas that we had for dessert. Overall, it was a great experience, and we headed back to the hotel full and ready for some rest. The second day was also a travel day, but we still had time for breakfast and a little exploring before leaving Silver City. Day 2 was a Sunday, and many of the businesses in the downtown area were closed, but we were able to find a place for breakfast that we had read about online, the Adobe Springs Cafe. Breakfast at the Adobe Springs Cafe was indeed unique, with a great outdoor patio atmosphere and good food and coffee, all with a southwestern flair. After eating, we decided to spend some time exploring the downtown streets of Silver City and Silver City's unique Big Ditch Park before heading out. This would certainly be a great place to spend some weekday time exploring the shops, galleries, coffee shops, and cafes. I may have to return here when I have more time to visit. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, floodwaters from the nearby mountains rushed down what was then the main street of Silver City, destroying it and replacing it with a huge gully or ditch. Residents began to use the back doors of their houses and businesses as front doors, and the ditch out back became a place for trash and other waste, and for many years was a nuisance. In the 1970s, residents decided to preserve the area as a tree-lined walking trail and park called Big Ditch Park. After exploring the park, it was late morning and time to head out to our next destination, Sedona, Arizona. Our route took us along the edge of the Gila Wilderness area and then into the mountains and forest near Show Low, Arizona. Insects are plentiful this time of year, but even through the insect-covered windshield, the beauty of this area is still evident. The arrival into Sedona, Arizona is very dramatic, with the appearance of the red rock cliffs that dominate this area. We arrived in Sedona tired and hungry and headed to Rotten Johnny's for some food. Rotten Johnny's features cheesy garlic bread, salads, and wood-fired pizza. There was also live music when we were there. The atmosphere was fun and the food was great. After a few pictures at sunset, it was time to turn in for the night and a fresh start in the morning for exploring the Sedona area. Day 3 in Sedona began with coffee from a local coffee shop, followed by a visit to the Tlaquepaque Arts and Shopping Village, which is fashioned after a traditional Mexican village with its shops and courtyards. It is a collection of galleries, shops, and restaurants built around photogenic, authentically built Mexican-style courtyards. The towering red rock formations dominate the Sedona landscape as you travel around Sedona. And this was certainly true as we headed for a visit to one of its landmarks, the Chapel of the Holy Cross. choosing a place to eat is never easy in Sedona, as there are many choices. Today we chose to have lunch at the Golden Goose American Grill. It's a mix of the contemporary and the eclectic, with a good lunch menu. It was a good choice as we enjoyed the food and the ambiance. After lunch, we headed to the Sedona Uptown Mall Plaza for some t-shirt shopping. And then it was time to head to Williams, Arizona, where we would stay for the night and begin the next part of our trip. We arrived in Williams, Arizona on the evening of day 3 after making a 2-hour trip from Sedona, Arizona. We checked into the Grand Canyon Railway Hotel, which is located next to the Williams Depot of the Grand Canyon Railroad, and about a block from Main Street, which is part of historic Route 66. We headed over toward Route 66 to Pine Country Restaurant for dinner. Pine Country Restaurant has great food and is known for their outstanding dessert case filled with homemade pies and cakes that is not to be missed. After dinner, we took some time to stroll Main Street. The town of Williams has done a great job of preserving the look and feel of the original Route 66 and is an enjoyable place to eat, shop, and explore. After spending time on Route 66, it was time to return to the hotel for some rest before the next day's rail trip to the Grand Canyon. The next morning began by picking up sack lunches that we had ordered the previous evening at the Fred Harvey restaurant next to the train depot, and then heading to the depot to await boarding time for the Grand Canyon Railway. We had purchased upgraded seating, and our reservations were for the Mary Coulter car, an adults-only, full-length dome car with a downstairs lounge area. This car has roomy seats, small tables, complimentary beverages and snacks both morning and afternoon, and a full paid bar for those who want it. It is a very comfortable car and a great way to travel across the high desert on the way to the Grand Canyon. The downstairs lounge area has couch seating, and it was never busy or crowded while we were on board. It also has complimentary snacks, beverages, and a full paid bar. The first view a person gets of the Grand Canyon is usually one of surprise and wonder at the sheer size and scope of the canyon that can never be fully captured in pictures. This was certainly true for my niece and nephew, who were seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time. The train dropped us off at the Grand Canyon Village, just a short walk up some steps from the canyon rim. We spent our time walking the rim trail, eating our lunches, visiting a couple of historic sites, and taking in the views of the canyon. The sack lunches consisted of a souvenir insulated bag. Inside was a sandwich, sun chips, a bottle of water, some trail mix, and Oreo cookies. It was a nice way to eat along the trail while enjoying great views of the canyon. As our time at the canyon neared its end, we boarded the train for our trip back to Williams and were greeted with glasses of refreshing ice water after our time in the sun, and champagne glasses that were soon filled with sparkling wine for a toast to our trip to the Grand Canyon. Our trip back to Williams was enjoyable but uneventful, and we arrived back in Williams just in time for dinner. We chose Cruiser's Route 66 Cafe on Main Street for dinner. Cruiser's serves classic American diner food with a full bar and local craft beer, and is a classic Route 66 atmosphere. There was even live music on their outdoor patio. After dinner, we spent a little more time wandering the street in the early evening atmosphere before heading back to the hotel. The next morning we got up in time to make our way to the Fred Harvey restaurant after the crowd had left to board the Grand Canyon Railroad to give their breakfast buffet a try. It was a good breakfast buffet, and we finished just in time to take a look at this historical engine brought here from Pikes Peak, Colorado, and then to see the Grand Canyon train pull out of the station on its way to the Grand Canyon. And there's the Mary Coulter car that we rode on just the day before. Just before heading out of town, we decided to ride the newly opened mountain coaster at the east end of town. It was fun and a great way to say goodbye to Williams, Arizona. It is early afternoon of day 5 of 21 for 21, and we're headed from Williams, Arizona to Laughlin, Nevada. We arrived early in the afternoon to the Aquarius Hotel and Casino, where we would be staying in Laughlin, Nevada. Since we were early, we decided to drive to the Arizona side of the river to take pictures of our hotel and the surrounding area while we waited for hotel check-in time. We were still able to check into our hotel rather early, and after getting our stuff into our room, we walked out to the river walk behind our hotel. We noticed that Celebration River Cruises had a river cruise boarding soon, and after checking into it, decided to get tickets for the cruise and wait for boarding. The cruise was a basic riverfront cruise along the riverfront hotels that make up Casino Row in Laughlin. The boat had an air-conditioned indoor seating area and an outdoor upper deck. There were drinks and snack foods available for purchase on board, and there was a narration about the history of the river, the nearby Davis Dam, Lake Mojave, and the Laughlin area. We chose an air-conditioned indoor seating area near large outside viewing windows for our cruise. since the temperatures outside were well over 100 degrees. From here, we were able to see the hotels along the river and watch the activity on the river, including boaters, tubers, and many jet skis, while sipping on cool drinks and enjoying some nachos. One activity that is very noticeable on the river is that of the water taxis, as they shuttle passengers between the various casino hotels on the Riverwalk. Here we see water taxis coming and going from behind the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino. We will later take one of these water taxis as we shuttle between several hotels for dinner and a little bit of gaming later on. The Colorado Belle, built in the shape of a riverboat, was one of the earlier hotel casinos built on the river. At the time of this video, it was closed with no targeted reopening date. The Edgewater Hotel is next door to the Aquarius where we were staying and is our boarding spot for the next day's London jet boat trip to London Bridge and Lake Havasu. After our cruise, we hopped on a water taxi at the dock behind our hotel and headed over to the Golden Nugget, to Saltgrass Steakhouse for dinner with a view. The food was good, and after dinner we walked around the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino and its nicely decorated lobby area complete with waterfall. After making stops at Harrah's and the Pioneer via water taxi, we took one final water taxi trip back to our hotel, the Aquarius, for the evening. The next morning, we boarded our jet boat at the dock behind the Edgewater Hotel and headed off on our trip to Lake Havasu and London Bridge. Along the way, we passed the Avi Resort and many riverside homes. Not long after passing under the Interstate 40 bridges, we entered Topock Gorge. Topock Gorge is a little over 4 miles long and can only be reached by water. It is part of the Havasu National Wildlife Refuge. It has steep rocky cliffs, crystal clear water, and an abundance of wildlife, although we didn't see any on this particular day. The heart of the gorge is a no-wake zone, which allowed us to move slowly through the gorge and enjoy its views and the smooth water of the Colorado River. As we exited the gorge, we were soon in the open waters of Lake Havasu and headed toward Bridgewater Channel and London Bridge. As we pulled into dock, it was time to find a place to eat. We chose Javelina Cantina, a Mexican food restaurant located at the end of London Bridge and overlooking Bridgewater Channel and London Bridge. After lunch, we decided to take a walk across London Bridge to take in the views of Havasu City, Bridgewater Channel, and Lake Havasu. Although the temperature was hot at 115 plus degrees, and so were we, it was worth it as the views from the bridge were great. And there's our ride back to Laughlin as seen from London Bridge. After finishing our walk, we spent some time cooling down and checking out the shops, restaurants, and views at the Island Mall by our dock. Soon it was time to board the jet boat for our trip back to Laughlin. And then we were off, headed back into Lake Havasu and then Topock Gorge. The view of Topock Gorge from the other direction is unique, with a different perspective, but just as spectacular. As we approached the riverside homes of Bullhead City, Arizona, we knew our trip was coming to an end. We would spend one more night at the Aquarius Hotel before the next part of our trip began. Day 7 began in Laughlin, Nevada, where we checked out of the Aquarius Hotel and drove across the river for some cold brew coffee from Starbucks and gas before heading to California. My niece and nephew had never been in California, so we decided to take the long way to Las Vegas and have lunch in Barstow before driving through a part of the Mojave Desert back to Las Vegas. As planned, we made it to Barstow around lunchtime and stopped for fast food at Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. It was not long before we were on the road again, headed through the Mojave Desert toward Las Vegas. We checked into our hotel room online and arrived in Vegas in the early afternoon and drove around for a little while until our hotel room was ready. After settling into our hotel room, we headed downstairs to grab a quick bite to eat at the Burger Brasserie located between Bally's and Paris. We walked around the area near our hotel before heading back to the room for a break before leaving for the airport to pick up my sister and brother-in-law who were flying in to meet us for the week in Vegas. They arrived hungry on their 9 p.m. flight, so after they settled into the hotel, we went down to Bally's Grand Bazaar shops for them to grab a bite to eat and decided to call it a night and get a fresh start in the morning. Day 8 started with us walking next door to the Miracle Mile shops at Planet Hollywood. We found a place there with a breakfast deal and had breakfast before exploring the Miracle Mile shops in Planet Hollywood. At Planet Hollywood, we ordered an Uber to take us to check out the new Resorts World. Resorts World certainly lives up to the hype and is a spectacular property, complete with a 3-story tall LED globe and a tribute to the Stardust Hotel that once sat on the site. From Resorts World, it was a short walk across the street to Wynn and Encore. These two high-end hotels feature gardens, water features, and beautifully decorated lobbies and common areas. It was soon time to head back to our hotel to get ready for our early dinner reservations that I had made several months earlier at Hell's Kitchen at Caesar's Palace. Hell's Kitchen is Gordon Ramsay's restaurant made famous in the TV series of the same name. Reservations need to be made well in advance, and in our case, I made the reservations for the 5 of us several months ahead of time. It's pricey, so come prepared. We had scallops for appetizers. For dinner, Christopher, Bob, my brother-in-law, and I had Gordon Ramsay's famous beef Wellington. Haley had chicken scallopini and a side of roasted asparagus. Tammy, my sister, had filet mignon. We all finished with Gordon Ramsay's famous sticky toffee pudding for dessert. After dinner, we walked down to the Mirage to see the Mirage Volcano, which is soon to be removed as part of rebranding to the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Day 9 began with crepes for breakfast at the Paris Hotel and then a walk to the Venetian to explore its shops and restaurants along the canals. After spending some time at the Venetian, we headed over to the Link and purchased tickets for the high roller wheel. The 30-minute trip around the Link High Roller afforded us views of the Las Vegas monorail, the construction of the MSG Sphere, the gardens and pool at the Flamingo, the Link Promenade, and the Las Vegas Airport. As we counted down to the top, we had great views of Las Vegas and the surrounding Las Vegas Valley.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And there's the Paris Hotel where we're staying. As the ride came to an end, we walked back to our hotel to get ready for dinner and our Cirque Du Soleil show, at the Bellagio. We had dinner and dessert at Mon Ami Gabi at the Paris Hotel before walking to Bellagio for our show. Video is not allowed during the show, but I took a few pictures of the theater from our seats in the third balcony before it began. After the show, we took a walk through the Bellagio Conservatory in its summer 2022 display, and then headed outside to see the Bellagio Fountains, although they were somewhat reduced in height due to wind on this particular evening. After watching the fountains, we headed back to our hotel for the evening. Day 10 of our 21 for 21 trip began as we checked out of the Paris Hotel and later checked into New York, near the south end of the Las Vegas Strip. After checking out of the Paris Hotel, we had some time before we could check into our rooms at New York, so we decided to drive out to Sam's Town on the Boulder Highway. Sam's Town is a somewhat locals hotel and casino with a beautiful indoor atrium area with gardens and water features called Mystic Falls Park. It has a large casino, restaurants, a bowling center, an arcade, and even a movie theater. We spent a few hours here before returning to the Las Vegas Strip when we were notified online that our rooms were ready. We parked in the parking garage and then checked into our Park Premier room with a view at New York, and took the elevators up to our room to check it out. Our room on the 27th floor included great views of the South Strip, the surrounding mountains, and the Las Vegas airport. We were hungry and chose Gonzales y Gonzales downstairs in the Village Street Eatery area for an early dinner. This Mexican food restaurant features spicy southwestern fare, chips with a salsa flight, as well as an authentic tequila bar. After dinner, we visited Hershey's Chocolate World in New York, New York. Hershey's is a two-story shopping experience of everything Hershey's, including personalized Hershey's chocolate bar wrappers and finding a perfect Reese's combination. It is truly an amazing place for chocolate lovers, and even has an all-chocolate Statue of Liberty. After leaving Hershey's, we went outside to check out the area around the hotel before returning to the hotel casino for a little slot play. Day 11 began with a visit to M&M's World, which was across the street from our hotel. It is advertised as 4 floors of chocolate heaven, and it's a fun place to visit and shop. From their M&M wall, you can make your own combination of any colors of M&Ms you choose. After having lunch at a nearby food court, we went back to our hotel and took a lift to the plaza in downtown, where we played a few slot machines before heading across the street to Fremont Street. We had dinner at Saginaw's Delicatessen at Cirque in downtown, before exploring the Fremont Street experience and the Golden Nugget Hotel and pool area. After dark, we returned via lift to New York, New York for the evening's gaming. Day 12 started with lunch at the nearby Hard Rock Cafe, followed by a drive of approximately 30 minutes to Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area. Red Rock Canyon is a scenic one-way 13-mile drive through Red Rock Canyon. There's a visitor center and a number of pullouts along the way for viewing and photography. After making our way through the scenic route, we made a stop at Red Rock Resort before heading back to New York, New York. We had dinner at the hotel at Tom's Urban and hung out at the hotel for the remainder of the evening. On day 13, our final full day in Vegas, we had coffee and pastries at one of the hotel coffee shops before heading out to walk to Cosmopolitan and Aria. Cosmopolitan is a hotel located in the city center area of the Strip and features this chandelier bar. The walk along the way from Cosmopolitan to Aria features some interesting restaurants and retail stores, and the lobby of the Aria is also quite impressive. After returning to our hotel, we walked to Luxor, where we had dinner at Diablo's Cantina before heading to Mandalay Bay for Cirque Du Soleil's Michael Jackson 1. Video is not allowed during this show. This would be our last evening in Las Vegas, and the next morning we would be headed to Colorado. Day 14 of our 21 for 21 trip began as we checked out of New York, New York near the south end of the Las Vegas Strip and hit the road to Colorado. We did a lot of driving and not a lot of videoing, but did take some shots from some scenic places along the way. About 100 miles northeast of Las Vegas, on Interstate 15, the highway passes across a 29-mile stretch of northwestern Arizona. Much of this is in the Virgin River Gorge, which is an extremely scenic and rugged route through a 15-mile-long canyon carved by the Virgin River, the same river that created the topography of Zion National Park. Here are some scenes taken of the drive through the gorge. This stretch of interstate highway, created almost half a century ago, was considered quite an engineering feat for its time. After a long but very scenic drive across Utah and western Colorado, we arrived in Rifle, Colorado in the late afternoon. We checked into the Hampton Inn and walked a few buildings down to the Rib City Grill for dinner before turning in for the night. It's day 15, and we started the day by taking the short drive on Interstate 25 to Glenwood Springs, and then took the opportunity to make the scenic 16-mile drive through Glenwood Canyon before making our way up the Roaring Forks Valley toward Aspen. The interstate highway through the narrow canyon was the last section of interstate highway completed in the 1990s and is itself an engineering marvel. After returning through the canyon to Glenwood Springs, we made our way toward Aspen, but took another side trip at Carbondale, past the 12,965-foot Mount Sopris to Redstone, and then to Hayes Creek Falls. Hayes Creek Falls is located just south of the town of Redstone on Colorado 133. It is a 40-foot waterfall with multiple cascades located just across the highway from the Crystal River. The falls are clearly visible from the road, and there are turnouts for parking and a short trail to the base of the falls. After leaving the falls, we headed down the Roaring Forks River Valley to Aspen. Aspen was busy and in the middle of a wine festival while we were there, but it didn't stop us from driving around to check out the town. Soon it was time to head out of town toward Independence Pass. The road to Independence Pass is lined with groves of aspen trees and is very scenic. At the base of Independence Pass is the historic ghost town of Independence. It is visible from the road and has a parking area and trail going down into the ghost town. Independence Pass at 12,095 feet is the highest paved mountain pass over the Continental Divide in Colorado. It connects the towns of Aspen and Twin Lakes. We arrived in Frisco, Colorado in Summit County in the late afternoon and checked into our hotel before heading to get a bite to eat at the Dillon Dam Brewery. After eating, we made the 1-hour drive over the Continental Divide through Eisenhower Tunnel and on to Central City and Blackhawk. We spent a couple of hours playing there before returning to the hotel in Frisco for the evening. Day 16 was a lot of driving and not much videoing. Our goal was to get from Frisco to Ouray, a 5-hour drive without stops, in time to pick up our rental Jeep for the next 2 days. Day 17 began as we hopped into our rented Jeep, and headed toward the scenic and historic Alpine Loop. We had picked up the four-door Jeep Rubicon we had rented from Colorado West Jeeps the evening before and were ready to set out for some backcountry jeeping early on day 17. We drove 6 miles south of Ouray on Highway 550 toward Red Mountain Pass before leaving the highway behind for backcountry jeep trails at Ironton Park, and immediately began our climb into the mountains with great views of Red Mountain and the surrounding area. After a very scenic climb, we reached the summit of Hurricane Pass at 12,730 feet in elevation. As we descended Hurricane Pass and began our climb toward California Pass, we were treated to great views of Lake Como below. Our next summit was California Pass at an elevation of 12,960 feet. We encountered snow descending from California Pass and lots of great views of waterfalls and the surrounding mountains. This brought us to the historic ghost town of Animas Forks, where we would begin our ascent toward Engineer Pass. Engineer Pass is one of the more challenging passes in the area, and definitely not for those with a fear of heights. But in a vehicle like the Jeep we rented, it's not that difficult, however, if one simply pays attention and takes their time. The views at the top of this 12,800 foot pass are definitely worth the effort. The drive down Engineer Pass on the Lake City side is much easier, but still very scenic, and by early afternoon we had arrived in Lake City. It was a nice day, and we decided to grab a bite to eat at Packer Saloon and Cannibal Grill in the outdoor seating area there. After lunch, we were back in the Jeep and headed towards Cinnamon Pass along Lake San Cristobal. Cinnamon Pass is an easier way than Engineer Pass back to Silverton and Ouray, but also very scenic with lots of flowing streams and mountain vistas. Cinnamon Pass is still a high mountain pass at 12,640 feet elevation, and it is above timberline and very open. It was windy and rather cool when we were up there. We did see wildlife in the form of numerous marmots on the way down, and a herd of elk in the far distance while headed up. Traveling down the other side of Cinnamon Pass completed the loop back to Animas Forks, and we headed back towards Silverton to join the highway back over Red Mountain Pass to Ouray. Back in Ouray, we had dinner at the Outlaw Restaurant before heading back to the hotel for the evening. On day 18, we were back in our rented Jeep Rubicon headed south on Highway 550, the $1 Million Highway, over Red Mountain Pass towards Silverton. Access to Ophir Pass is about 5.5 miles north of Silverton off of Highway 550. We turned off of the highway and headed toward the summit of Ophir Pass, which we reached at an elevation of 11,789 feet. The trip down the Telluride side of the pass starts with a shelf road that affords great views of the mountains, and then continues through numerous aspen groves before reaching the town side of Ophir, and then by highway onto Telluride. In Telluride, we parked the Jeep in a parking garage and took the free public transportation gondola up to the mountain village for lunch. We had lunch at the Pick, which is a make-your-own burrito-style eatery. We ate outdoors at one of the many tables along the walkways. After lunch, we walked around the mountain village, took some pictures and videos, went into a few shops, and watched some mountain bikers before returning to the gondola station for our trip back over the mountain and down to Telluride. We took the highway back to Ouray and returned our rental Jeep before taking a walk around town before dinner. We had dinner at the Bonton restaurant, a local favorite located at the St. Elmo Hotel in Ouray. The next day, we would visit Box Canyon Falls before heading to Durango. Day 19 began as we checked out of our hotel in Ouray, Colorado, and headed to Durango. Since we had plenty of time on the way out of town, we stopped by Box Canyon Falls. Box Canyon Falls is a 285-foot waterfall that falls through a narrow canyon of Canyon Creek with sheer rock walls on each side. The canyon is located just outside of Ouray and is easily accessible by a short walk from the parking lot. There's a $5 admission charge for adults to the falls and surrounding trails, with discounts for children and seniors. After spending some time at the falls, we headed south on US 550, the $1 Million Highway, over Red Mountain Pass through Silverton and over Molas Pass toward Durango. With plenty of time before check-in time at our hotel, we stopped at the Purgatory Resort and bought tickets for the scenic lift ride there. The ride is a very scenic one with sweeping views of the surrounding San Juan Mountains. As we neared the top, it had begun to rain, so we didn't get off at the top and walk around, but simply headed back down the lift toward the base. As we neared the bottom of the lift, the rain had stopped, and we were treated to these views of these giant aspen trees in this aspen grove. After walking around the quiet mountain village for a little while, we headed into Durango and checked into our hotel before heading downtown to explore Main Street and get some dinner. We had dinner at the derailed poorhouse in downtown Durango. It was an interesting place decorated with lighted trees. The food and dessert were good, as was the atmosphere. In addition to the bar, they also served locally made root beer. After dinner, we spent some time exploring the downtown area, the Durango Silverton Depot, and the shops in the downtown area. From there, we headed back to our hotel to get some rest before the next day's trip on the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. The following morning, we arrived at the Durango Silverton station just in time to see the early train pull by one of the railroad's diesel engines, complete boarding, and pull out of the station on its way to Silverton. Once the early train cleared out, it was soon time to board the San Juan car of our train and depart for our trip to Silverton. The first portion of the trip is through town and then through the valley north of Durango, followed by the climb through the forest to Rockwood. After the Rockwood Cut, the train enters the High Line and then follows the M&Ms River to Silverton on a route that is not accessible by road. Our train on the way to Silverton today was pulled by 2 steam engines, with the exception of one small stretch where the 2 engines were uncoupled across a bridge separately to meet weight restrictions. The double-headed steam power put on quite a show at times, climbing towards Silverton. By the time we arrived in Silverton, it was lunchtime, and we found a place to eat in Silverton and then set out to explore town for a couple of hours. In spite of the typical afternoon mountain rain shower, we bought t-shirts, had ice cream, and walked around town while our train turned around and backed into town for boarding for our return trip to Durango. The return trip was a scenic and enjoyable way to spend the afternoon before our arrival back in Durango at dinner time. We had dinner in a rainy downtown before returning to the hotel for a night's rest before leaving for Red River, New Mexico the following morning. Day 21 began as we packed up the car and began our drive across southern Colorado and into New Mexico to Red River. We left Durango and headed east toward Pagosa Springs and then over the well-known Wolf Creek Pass. Evidence of the devastation caused by the pine bark beetle infestation a few years back in the western U.S. is in full view as you approach the summit of Wolf Creek Pass. The top of Wolf Creek Pass sits on the Continental Divide at 10,857 feet. Just on the eastern side is Wolf Creek Ski Area. As you get closer to South Fork, Colorado, Big Meadow Reservoir lies down a short side road off of the highway. It is a popular camping and fishing lake with nice mountain scenery. We decided to stop there briefly for a break and take a look at the lake. As it was on most of Wolf Creek Pass, the pine bark beetle infestation was evident here as well, even leaving the campground that was once in the trees out in the open. From Wolf Creek Pass, we headed east through South Fork and then across southern Colorado and into New Mexico. We arrived in Red River, New Mexico in the middle of the afternoon. We checked into our room that overlooked the stream and ski area, and after settling in, headed out to get dinner. Dinner was at Capo's Italian restaurant, just down the street across the bridge from the hotel. They serve great Italian food and desserts. Day 22 began with a scenic lift ride in the late morning to the top of the mountain for lunch. We had wraps at the Ski Tip restaurant for lunch. Good food and good views. After lunch, we walked around and took pictures at the top of the mountain before heading back to the lift for the ride down. The ride down is very scenic and affords great panoramic views of the town of Red River, including our hotel and Capo's restaurant from the previous evening. After completing the lift ride, we walked around town, did some t-shirt shopping, tried some fudge, had coffee, and watched some zipliners. It was beginning to look rainy, so we headed back to the hotel room to wait out the afternoon rain shower. What do you do when it's raining in the mountains? You chill in the room and you watch the rain. Once we got a break in the rain, we headed to the Red River Brewing Company for dinner. It's a local microbrewery with excellent food and desserts. After eating, we headed back once again in the rain to our hotel to get ready for the next day's trip to Ruidoso, New Mexico. On day 23, we left a rainy Red River, New Mexico for a drive over the mountains through Angel Fire and on to Ruidoso, New Mexico. The drive this morning was cool and rainy as we traveled over the mountains through Angel Fire and eventually to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and then made our way across the high desert of New Mexico and eventually to Ruidoso. After the drive, we had dinner at Nuevo Camino restaurant in Ruidoso before settling into our rooms at the Inn of the Mountain Gods in Mescalero. Day 24 began with morning coffee on the hotel balcony, overlooking Mescalero Lake, the surrounding mountains, and the nearby golf course. Our superior room at the Inn of the Mountain Gods had a nice balcony, a seating area, coffee maker, microwave oven, refrigerator, and desk area. It also featured a wall-mounted flat-screen TV and an iPad for resort information. The room and hallways were decorated with Native American art representing the Mescalero Apache tribe. The lobby of the hotel features 2 working fireplaces and giant picture windows overlooking the lake and mountains. The stairway downstairs to Wendell's restaurant and lounge also features a fountain. We made dinner reservations for Wendell's for the evening before heading out for the day. We decided to take in a late morning movie at Sierra Cinemas before heading into Ruidoso to explore the town. After the movie, we headed back to Midtown and parked the car to walk around. As it had been doing for the past few days, it was again raining, but that didn't keep us from enjoying our explorations of downtown Ruidoso. We did some window shopping and bought some more t-shirts, as well as some locally made salsa before heading back to the Inn of the Mountain Gods for our dinner reservations at Wendell's. Since we had some time before our dinner reservation, after arriving back at the hotel and parking in the parking garage, I decided to explore the hotels and grounds at the Inn of the Mountain Gods. A new food court was opening up between the elevators and the lobby called The Market. It actually opened the day we were there. Also located in this area with an entrance off of the lobby is the Broken Arrow Tap House. The circular drive at the front of the hotel is normally accessed by an exit going under the bridge from the main road. During our stay, a new bridge was under construction and traffic was detoured through an alternate route. I headed back inside and through the lobby and check-in area, and then downstairs by windows, and then outside to have a look at the back of the hotel. Behind the hotel is a golf course and a walking path along the lake. There's also a multi-story water feature off of the back of the hotel itself. While the front of the hotel appears to be a very low structure, the back of the hotel reveals that the hotel is several stories high due to setting on a hillside overlooking the lake. There's fishing available at the lake for a fee, paddle boats, and even a zip line that crosses over the lake. It is also very relaxing just to walk along the lake, take in the scenery, watch the ducks, and enjoy the cool mountain air. Wendell's Steak and Seafood is a fine dining restaurant overlooking the lake, and although a bit pricey, is definitely worth it. We had salads, chicken, and great elk tenderloin. And for dessert, we had cheesecake and chocolate lava cake. It was a fitting end for our adventure out west. The next day, after a long day's drive, we returned home, having covered 4,268.9 miles in 25 days. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the description below for links to some of the places mentioned in the video and other links for the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please like and share. And if you're new to the channel, support us by subscribing to the channel and hit that notification button to be notified when we release a new video. Your subscription is always free and greatly appreciated. Check out our website at findushere.com for more video and other content. And be sure to join us on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Find Us Here Online. If you would like to become a channel supporter, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/findushere. Your support is greatly appreciated.